Yay! We're gonna start on time. Perfect. All right, so I'm gonna call the meeting of Rutland Northeast Supervisory Union to order.
Recording in progress.
Yep, at 5 p.m. So if I could get someone to make a motion to accept the agenda, please. Susanna is making that motion, I believe. Is there a second? Okay, Jess is making a second. So all of those in favor of the agenda, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Perfect. We have an agenda. Thank you. Communications with parents, citizens, and staff. In your packet was the Reach Out Communication Report from September 2023. Was there anything you wanted to point out?
No, just the September and the October, generally speaking, our response time is 26 minutes across the system when you average it all out. So we're doing pretty well.
Great. And the other thing that we got a note, the RNESU board got a card from Beth Cole that says, I will read it. RNESU board, I thank you for voting in favor of paying me my unused sick leave. I have to believe that the 25 years of service means as much to you as it did to me. I learned so much over the years and I'm so thankful for the opportunity. Thank you, Beth Cole. So, and Snoopy. Yay. So, that came to us. I don't believe there was any other communications. Is there anybody here who wants to speak to us?
Lori?
Yes.
Did you
say your name and your town of residence?
In the accepting the agenda, did you want to remove the budget parameters or just?
No, when I get to it, we'll just, thank you though. Okay, so we're gonna move on to consent agenda. Someone want to make a motion? Anyone?
I would make that motion.
Thank you, Susanna. And looks like Jess wanted to second that. Okay. All of those in favor of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Consent agenda passes. Communication and support to the board.
I don't have anything that wasn't shared with Barstow and OVUHS. We have an upcoming community forum on sort of the strategic plan, the launch of that, sort of the first phase. And I sent actually around to parents we have an upcoming author's visit where kids can get books and free signing by a local author that's supported by our RNESU librarians. That's Thursday. And we also shared some local food resources with families.
Great. Any questions for Kristen? Okay, we're gonna move on. We are now, Debbie's not here though.
She was waylaid and is in traffic. She should be here momentarily.
All right, so we're gonna move on. When Debbie gets here, we'll do the presentation of curriculum.
Brian Crane.
But we will start with our monitoring report, our executive limitation monitoring report of 2.1, treatment of students and parents and guardians. That should be in your packet. Can I see that for just a second? Sorry.
This is a lengthy one. This might take me a little bit.
That's okay. I think you killed a tree there.
I didn't. Melinda definitely did.
Okay. So is there anything, everyone has been able to look at 2.1 and Kristen's interpretations and her explanations or evidence that she's provided. Does anybody have any questions for Kristen or anything jump out at you that you didn't like? Want to get clarification on?
No, this is the same as what we reviewed last night, correct?
That is correct, yep.
That is correct, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, OVUU reviewed this at their last meeting 2 weeks ago, and I believe BUU reviewed it last night as a board last night. So, was there any discussion at your board meeting last night in regards to this at all? No?
No, we agreed.
Okay. And as I recall at the OVUU board meeting, there wasn't any discussion regarding any of the, anything in compliance or what Kristen had here, so, if you're in agreement, we can move on. We should accept it though, as a board. So if someone wants to make the motion to accept.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Okay, Jess?
2.1, is that what it is?
Yes, yep. Is there a second? No. Ethan is seconding. Okay. All those in favor of accepting the monitoring report provided by Kristen, 2.1, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for that too. Look at us, I thought we were gonna be here a lot longer. Okay, so board monitoring report 3.2. This is our own board monitoring report. What you have in front of you is the monitoring report that we filled out last October 27th. This is 3.2, accountability of the superintendent. Is there anything here that looks like it's changed in the last year? Anything you want to change? I will change the dates. Okay, so hearing none, everybody seems okay with the interpretations of our policies and the examples of where we did and didn't follow it, where mostly we are following this, so. Okay, we don't need a motion, so we will just move on. Okay, RNESU policies for action, first reading. First one is GBLA, records check for non-employees working in the schools. It's revised. Can I get someone to make a motion so we can talk about it?
So moved.
Thanks, Susanna. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Jess. Okay.
Find it.
Yeah, right. So this one is, do you want to talk to how it was revised?
Sure. Let's find it.
It's GBLA.
That means nothing to me
Okay, well,
in our large packet of stuff. Okay. Oh, right. So so a lot of it has to do with shifts related to the safety legislation and the Raptor system, which we've sort of talked about at length at several different board meetings. Here, though, we're specifically talking about some checks, record checks for non-employees working in the schools, and you'll see some changes because of the ability of Raptor to sort of do those rapid checks in the buildings for us, allowing folks that sort of just come in and volunteer while they're supervised to not have to go through the full background check. Same thing would go for if they were a chaperone on a trip where they were not the sole person responsible for supervision of students, but they were in fact working with the teacher. We would just have them go through the Raptor system. But if they are going to be working in our schools as a substitute, as a volunteer who isn't supervised with students, if they're going to be a chaperone and responsible for their own groups of students and or on any overnight trips, that would still require folks to go through the full background check. So again, here is just sort of it. Raptor allowed us to free us up to allow folks to be in schools at a lower level without going through the entire process, which we know also costs money.
So Raptor, that takes care of the fingerprinting too on site?
No, we only fingerprint background check to that degree if they're going to be unsupervised with any of our kids, right? And there are a lot of volunteers who are in the building, right? If I'm a parent and I just want to read in the classroom, I want to come in for a holiday party, I can just go through Raptor, and the folks know that I don't have any red flags and I'm able to be there supervised. But if I, for instance, want to, I have a therapy dog and I'm going to be taking small groups of children to the library to sit with my dog and I to read, I still have to go through the full fingerprint background check.
Okay, gotcha.
Any other discussion regarding this policy? This policy will come back one more time before it's finalized. So if there's no other discussion, we can bring it to vote. All of those in favor of GBLA revised, records checks for non-employees working in the schools, please signify by saying aye.
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 Perfect, thank you. Also up for our first reading and to approve is RNESU policy GD-R, which is non-union support personnel terms and conditions of employment. This is also revised. Can I get someone to make a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thanks, Jess. Is there a second?
Second.
Great, Susanna. Discussion. Do you want to talk about this one?
I mean, I don't really want to talk about this one, except to say part of the reason why this came up to us is from the thank you card from Beth Cole. This is about shoring up sort of the policy so that we don't cause any unintentional harm to staff who really are doing a service for us, right? So if you think back to the issue of Beth Cole, she had uninterrupted service for us as a supervisory union, but she switched districts because we asked her to, right? Because we sort of shifted her job. So if your board hadn't agreed to approve her days, she would have been harmed by this. So truly the revisions to this policy are just to sort of true up what we know is in the best interest of our employees. So it's really to not cause harm.
Okay.
I don't know if you want Brenda's smarter.
No. Well, unless Brent, did you want to? No. Brenda says we're good. Okay. So, any discussion from you guys? People? Hearing none. All those in favor of the... Oh. Did I hear something? No, that's been myself. Sorry. All those in favor of GDR, non-union support personnel terms and conditions of employment, please signify by saying aye.
Artie is
Perfect, thank you.
the owl being funky. I think it's not.
Could be. All right, so, Superintendent's 1, 5, and 10-year plan. I know that OVUU heard it 2 weeks ago. I'm assuming BUU heard it last night. Is it something that you want to hear again, or, yeah, I know. Kristen's saying no.
I'm happy to do the Vanna show if people are wanting it.
But did anything come out of it from last night that, I mean, I know OVUU is thankful to her to have a vision and to start looking at what our district is going to look like down the road, even if it's just a couple of years at this point. So, okay, I'm not hearing anything, so we will continue to move on. So we were gonna set budget parameters tonight for ESSER. BUU heard about this last night. OVUU is gonna hear it tonight. So we are going to skip it for RNESU this evening, since, and we will bring it back to our next meeting, if that's okay with you guys. Okay. Our next thing up is pre-K discussion. Tonight with us is Sarah Crosman. She is the director of the
Supervisor.
Supervisor of the pre-K program. And so she's here tonight to give us an overview of our current programs.
Hi. So as some of you might be aware, last year our preschool programs were 10 hours a week. And we recognized and heard from some families that those hours were difficult for some families, and we wanted to work to increase our time with preschoolers. So we sat down and looked at our programs and how we could restructure what we have. And for this year, we expanded our hours. We increased our classroom staff. This year we have a capacity of 145 students for preschool, and our expanded hours have allowed for increased EEE services within our classrooms. So at Caverly, Neshabie, and OCA Whiting this year, the programs look very similar. The younger preschoolers, or the 3-year-olds, go for 2 days a week for 6 hours for a total of 12 hours. And the older preschoolers, or the 4-year-olds, go for 3 days a week for 6 hours for a total of 18 hours.
Yes.
Sarah, can I stop you? Do you want to share your screen because folks online,
Oh, they can't
No.
see? Okay,
they can hear you bluthering
but they
on.
can't see. He told me just to click the Google one. Okay, sorry about that. Barstow is a little bit different. Looking at the numbers that we have there, we decided that a multi-age classroom worked well there. So that the Barstow runs for 3 days a week, 6 hours a day for a total of 18 hours. And this is a look at our current enrollment numbers. We currently have 117 students enrolled, and by the end of the month, it will be up to 120. We are having families reach out every week asking if we still have room. Our curriculum is based off the Vermont Early Learning Standards. In our preschool classrooms, we offer a play-based approach to learning so that children feel free to explore and gain some pre-academic skills and social and emotional skills through play. We do also have structured activities. We focus a lot on social and emotional learning and development in preschool, about feelings and how to handle those feelings respectfully, how to work as a team, how to take turns, how to develop friendship skills and self-regulation skills, and how to advocate for their wants and needs. Preschool is all about hands-on learning and exploration. Right now it's all about fall, so students are going for walks and finding leaves and plants and learning how to identify them. We did, some classes did some apple taste testing and some recipe making using apples, and they're using pumpkins to explore and learn about parts of a pumpkin, as well as learn some math skills. We have two types of partnerships within RNESU. We have universal preschool partnerships, and then we have a partnership with a childcare. Our universal preschool partnerships are with a few universal preschools out of our district for our lottery slots. We also have a partnership with Brandon Parent Child Center. Brandon Parent Child Center offers full-time care, so that's a great option for families who aren't able to make our program hours work for them. The families who attend the Brandon Parent Child Center are able to access the universal preschool funds, which for the district, or for the 2023-24 year, is $3,746. We also have a partnership with Fox Hollow Forest School. They are a new program, and they are located in Barstow School. They also offer full-time care. They have a school day option with before care and after care, and this also supports the families who aren't able to make our preschool schedule work for them. Bob Myers states that students really become familiar with the procedures, grounds, and routines by having the program in Barstow, and the students are already saying they are Barstow students. We also have a partnership with ARK, which is out of Whiting School. ARK is not a universal preschool, that is just a childcare. ARK, we have a classroom within that building, so between ARK and Whiting, we're able to support full-time, between ARK and our program, we're able to support full-time care for families on that side of the district. Most of the families in our preschool classrooms also attend ARK, so they have that wraparound care where they come to us in the morning, and then after our program is over, they're able to go into the preschool program. ARK is an infant through preschool program. They are not a universal preschool, so their program does not cost our district the universal preschool funds. There is shared cost and shared upkeep of the building between ARK and RNESU. And ARK and the teachers over there have a great relationship. They meet regularly and collaborate and able to create systems that support all of the students throughout the day. RNESU does currently have a boundary for universal preschool. This boundary is all of our programs. It also includes the Brandon Parent Child Center and the Fox Hollow Forest School. This allows RNESU to project costs and continue high-quality opportunities for our preschool students. We also do have a lottery system that was adopted by the board several years ago. And currently the lottery system allows for 5 students to attend a universal preschool outside of the RNESU boundaries. For the 2023-24 school year, we had 6 families apply for the lottery. Because 2 slots were, 3-year-old slots are younger preschoolers, those families decided they wanted to continue their slots, so they kept them. So we had 3 new slots that were filled. And this year we have 5 students at 4 different preschools.
Excuse me, can we just, does boundary just mean the physical boundaries of our RNESU? Is that all that means, the term?
So within Act 166, which is the law of universal preschool, districts could choose to adopt having a boundary. So yes, the boundary is our 8 towns of the students that we service. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. Okay.
And then the last thing I just wanted to mention was that in this past legislative session, Act 76 was introduced. Act 76 encompassed a lot of child care subsidy and how to support the growth and development of our early ed support for families within the state of Vermont. Part of Act 76 goal was to have universal pre-kindergarten for full day, full school year 4-year-olds. There was a lot of discussion and how that would affect childcare within the state of Vermont and how that would affect school districts. Because there was so much discussion, for now they pulled the universal pre-kindergarten portion out of Act 76. They did create a pre-kindergarten education implementation planning committee. They are charged with determining how to implement pre-kindergarten for a full day, full school year program for 4-year-olds, with the intent of it beginning for the 26-27 school year. That report is due to the legislature on December 4th of next year. So coming down the line, that is what the vision is in terms of the legislature. In terms of what we are doing to move towards that, we've increased our hours for 4-year-olds and made it more mirror a full school day, so they do get out, the preschool students do get out at 2 o'clock, but we are moving towards full day for 4-year-olds. Are there any questions about what I said so far?
Susanna?
Can you articulate the district's reasoning behind maintaining the boundary further than this, that it allows us to predict how many students will be entering kindergarten?
Brenda has a lot of the financial, has a lot of information on the financial impact of that. Brenda, did you want to speak at all about that?
Sure.
So I think that a lot of it has to do with the history. So before the universal pre-K law came into existence, we already had on-site, in-house universal pre-K programs. And when it was first rolled out, the state of Vermont actually encouraged schools to set a boundary. So we were good little soldiers and we followed the recommendations. We set a boundary that allowed us to do two things. It allowed us to secure our staff and our programs and to be compliant with the universal pre-K law. Over the years, I think they were also thinking it was a good way to use buildings where they knew that we were seeing a decline in students throughout the state and that there was resources in school buildings. So it was a good way to actually use the school buildings and expand services to 3- and 4-year-olds. It didn't work out that way. I think we are the only state or the only district with actually a boundary. And that's why, you know, we come back to you regularly to talk about it. The cost is a little bit hard to project. They're fairly comparable if the number of students that we served were the same. The reality is the number of students that we serve may be higher because we know there are families that are not taking advantage of the universal pre-K subsidy monies because they are outside of our geographical region. Last year, Sarah did some research on how many families that was, and we didn't relook at those numbers, but the other reality is if we wanted to eliminate the boundary, our programs would look very different. It would, realistically, we would build our programs after we knew our need. And as scary as that sounds, it means we would be reducing staff. We would be letting our staff know that they could lose their positions because we would fill the programs based on the students that we had to service. We know that some schools have a lot of students who come to our programs. As you may recall, we have 117 students that are serviced in our program. This year, we rolled out the Fox Hollow Forest School, which is kind of a mouthful. And we didn't know what it would look like, but we did not see a decline in our Barstow program. So the Barstow program actually has a higher, only by 1 or 2, but we were concerned that we might not have enough need, and it proved that there is enough need for more programs. You know, so in the Mendon-Chittenden area, it supports both the Barstow program and the Fox Hollow Forest School. So that's kind of the history in a nutshell.
Is it true that if a family, for whatever reason, let's just say for the sake of example, scheduling, needs to send their child to a preschool outside of our boundary, that family then cannot use the universal pre-K state funding, but the district also doesn't receive that money. That money just disappears from our entire universe, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, and we don't get $3,746 from the state for every preschool student. So while we have an obligation to pay that to private providers, we don't get that from the state. So there's not a loss of revenue like that.
Are there other questions for Sarah in regards to the programs as they've been implemented so far this year? Okay. So at this point, we do need to entertain whether or not to continue our regional boundary and our voucher lottery. Normally in the past, we've done this in April. But we really need to be doing it now because if we're going to maintain it, then Sarah needs to let the state know and prepare that paperwork. So what is your pleasure? if someone wants to make a motion. Oh, you just muted yourself, Susanna, sorry.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Can you make a motion in the negative, or do we just not pass a motion for a boundary?
So either way, I mean, it's however you can make the motion any way you want.
I would make the motion to discontinue the preschool boundary for the district.
Okay. Is there a second?
I just want to confirm that would be for the 24 to 25 school year, or?
Yes. I'm not hearing a second, so the motion fails.
I'll second. I'll second.
Oh, now you're seconding, okay. Discussion.
Yeah, what's your reason for that?
I just think with the support that these younger students need, specifically now, I think it's warranted. I think that we didn't see the impact that we thought we were, the negative impact with the Fox Hollow, and I think that's a positive sign too for me to make that decision. It's just a tough situation, it always has been, but I'd like to think that we're moving out of it.
I think it creates an unnecessary boundary to education to some of our younger students, and I think it sounds like hopefully within the next couple of years, we're going to have a full day program regardless, which would sort of shrink this issue in terms of its impact on working parents. But I don't see that evidence has been presented to us that justifies us being the only district in the state to maintain this kind of arrangement.
Can I say something?
You most certainly can.
So I would just like to make sure that everyone is very aware, and this isn't necessarily an argument for the boundary or against the boundary, but just very aware that there is a very real possibility that with the elimination of the boundary, that we in fact have to RIF staff because we don't know. So if I've got a kindergarten population or a first grade population or a second grade population, I pretty much know what that's going to look like, right? Because kids have to pay 13 grand, 15 grand, 19 grand, Brenda says, whatever it is. If I'm a Mendon resident and I want to go to Rutland City, right, that money K to 12 doesn't follow me in the same way that it does pre-K. So pre-K is more of a moving target. So say we even know year to year how many 3 to 4-year-olds we have, we would have to get families to sign a contract or provide us with some sort of confirmation to carry the staff forward in a way that's very different from what we do K to 12. So there is the possibility that with the, which is part of why we built the boundary initially, there's the possibility that we are riffing staff to say we don't know how many pre-K kids we're gonna have, so we have to tell everyone you may or may not have a job. Then, right, we might get the kids, we pull them back, but they've all gotten other jobs. So there is sort of this ripple, there is an impact on the other side that in Sarah's presentation we didn't really talk about, that I just want the board to be totally informed about.
Can I just get clarification? If we like drop the boundary, what does that mean then for the those like the Brandon Parents Place and the Fox Hollow School? Do we just mean we're not supporting them anymore? Like, what does that mean?
No different to them.
Well, so it wouldn't mean anything any different. The money would still flow. So the money for every student that goes to Fox Hollow and to Brandon Parent-Child Center right now flows through us, the district, and we reimburse them for their expenses. That would still continue because the money follows the child in the district that they're in. So if we were to drop the boundary and a student wanted to attend Rutland, then the money would come in through us and we would send it to Rutland. It would follow the child.
Just to be clear, there's no money coming in through us.
Right, well, no, right, it has to come through the state.
No, we
Oh.
don't get money for these
Okay.
kids.
You just don't pay out. if
You
it's
just
not.
don't pay out if it's our program.
Okay, right.
But to Ethan's question, yes, Fox Hollow and Brandon Parent Child would continue to sort of get our money. Fox Hollow would continue if the Barstow Board allowed them to use the space, continue on with that partnership, but you wouldn't necessarily have the kids and the teacher to have the Barstow classroom site, right? You may not, for instance, be able to run Caverly. You might not be able to run Whiting. So it does have the potential to impact, and the hard thing, it is an impact long-term. It's annually, depending on what parents sort of say. This is what I want for programs. These are how many kids we have as 3 and 4-year-olds.
And if I can just add, we can't really project that now because you're talking about 2-year-olds, right? So we won't really know until March, April, families' interest in where they might place their 3 and 4-year-olds.
I think the majority of parents want their child in their local school. I think there's a handful of parents where the scheduling is difficult because of their working hours, or maybe they have a commute where it would be easier for them to have their child in school somewhere along that route. I don't think this pulls a majority of students out of our programs. I think this just helps support the handful of kids that are kind of struggling to fit into it as it's working now. And I hear what you're saying about there not being concrete answers about numbers, but I don't think that affects us any more than it affects anyone else in the state of Vermont. And I mean, I think that's sort of a universal, every year, we don't know how many kids are born. That's just sort of part of the equation.
I guess I'm gonna throw my 2 cents in here, because, my feeling, one of the things that Brenda didn't touch on when she talks about the history of preschool in our districts is that the whole reason that these boundaries came into being was because the model for universal preschool was based on Rutland Northeast. And what the state was hoping is that if they attached money to students, to our 3 and 4-year-olds, that those districts, all of the districts, would start preschool programs. And instead what happened is that most of the districts just said, oh, okay, it just goes to all the preschools that are already in our district. And they didn't want to start their own preschool programs. So we're in a completely different conundrum than most other schools around, I would think. I mean, thinking about Middlebury doesn't really have preschool, and I'm worried that we're going to allow families who have the means to take their kids out of our district to do so. And my other question, one of my questions is that how many people asked for our lottery last year and didn't get it?
We had 6 families apply for the lottery. One family moved out of our district and didn't access it, and another family applied but also wanted to come to our program.
It didn't count.
So it didn't count, okay.
So it didn't count. And the third, it ended up being that all 3 we had 3 families that couldn't take advantage of it and 3 families that could
Okay.
last year.
So there's not a whole bunch of people knocking down our door asking to go outside of our boundary that we know of.
There was not last year, correct? I don't know before that.
Part of me wants to protect our boundary only because it's what I know and it's what I know that we have a wonderful preschool program throughout our entire district, our boundary, and I don't want to lose that. But, anyway, is there other discussion? Okay, hearing none, then we will go ahead and vote. All of those in favor of Susanna's motion, which is to discontinue the boundary for the 24-25 year, please raise your hand or say yay. So I see two. And I want to vote no as well, so I will vote, and so therefore the motion dies. Is there another motion before the board at this time?
Do we have to vote one way or the other on this one tonight?
Yes, I believe so. I believe Sarah needs to know this stuff now.
I believe that it's due by November 15th, isn't it?
Okay, and our next meeting will not be until the 21st of November.
And you want me to build a budget?
And we want, yes, and we need a budget to be built.
Well, I'll make the motion to extend the boundaries for the 24-25 school year.
Okay, is there a second? Can I second? I can't second. I don't think I can second.
Well, if the motion,
I can vote if it's tied, but I don't think I can
if the
second.
motion to stop the boundaries fails, then by default, the boundary
The
exists,
boundary exists.
unless a different motion comes up, right?
It's true.
You have to apply for it annually. I don't know.
Well, I would say at this point, the four of us are at a stalemate, and in that regard, then I think the boundary probably stays as is, going forward. But we can also, I'm not sure where we go with this at this point. I mean, I would also like to keep the voucher system going, because I think that allows parents to have choice if they need it. Yes, Susanna.
I'd just like to make a comment on that. If this is the way this flushes out and the boundary stays and the lottery system stays, I was the recipient of a lottery voucher, and once it was granted to me, it was granted to me so late in the process that I couldn't get my child in anywhere with it.
Which is why.
So maybe there's some timing we can change.
Well, that's why we're doing it. Yeah,
So-
sorry. Oh, wait.
So that's why we're doing this earlier than usual.
Yes, that is why we're doing that now. Yep.
We did not hear from the state. We notified families the day we heard from the state, and we reached out to the state a few times asking for an update. So we did submit the application for the boundary in April. I believe it was April. And
Just to clarify, I wasn't a recipient this past year.
Oh, it was before, right. And we had, yeah, normally we used to do this in April, like I had said before, and we are doing it earlier in the process so that it gives Brenda time to do a budget, and also because the paperwork is due by November. So, yeah. So, I think we need to move on. I think at this point, we should have a discussion again at our November meeting, but also direct Sarah to do the paperwork at the same time. Are you okay with that? For the boundary? And then we can always remove our application if we wanted to. Because at this point, I see that we're locked in a stalemate, and, yeah. Is that okay with you guys?
Okay.
Jess? Ethan?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
I just been sitting here for so many years going through the same thing and just hoping we're getting close enough to make a change.
Well, I realize, and the state may make a change for us. I mean, if we go to universal four-year-old
Yeah.
preschool, that's gonna change the dynamic anyway for us, so,
Yeah, so I'm hoping we're moving towards that.
yeah, okay. All right, so I think that's what we're gonna do. Our next, thing is going back to the presentation by Debbie Alexander on the overview of curriculum.
So Kristen, I sent my slideshow. Would you have it?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Please. So hello, everyone. Tonight am going to talk a little bit, a lot about the curriculum work that has been going on in the district this year and over the summer. And followed on, I'm going to touch a little bit because we're going to do a little bit more at the OVUHS board today. And we did some last night, talk a little bit about how the next steps in that curriculum based on our assessment data, based on what we learned from the assessment data, based on Act 173, and also thinking about Kristen's strategic planning that was heard at both the OVUHS board and the RNESU board. So thinking back to Act 173 5 years ago, one of the levers of Act 173 was a coordinated curriculum, a curriculum that begins at pre-K all the way up through 12th. You should be able to read it and understand the progressions all along. And this year we have, if you could go to the next slide, please. This year we have 10 pre-K through 8 teachers, teacher leaders, a 7th and 8th grade OV, ELA and math teachers, a couple of RNESU coaches, and then all of the Otter Valley teachers. And we are working off from a template that is the same for pre-K all the way up through 12th grade, identifying proficiencies, which is the really large understanding, and we are breaking that down into essential learning outcomes, prioritize performance indicators. Those are sort of the things that our students should be able to do, and then down to learning targets. And those are sort of the grain size things that the targets for each of our lessons. So that work is happening right now. We actually, in grades pre-K through 6, have all of the math and ELA first draft done. We'll be looking at sort of shifting that language into derived language so that it's unpacked a little bit more and people have a real understanding of that. Our teacher leaders are working with the administrative staff to do some professional development with the Center for Educational Learning, and they're doing training on how to facilitate meetings. They are taking each of the early release days, and on those days they'll be unpacking the curriculum throughout the school year. Once that curriculum is built, there will be many things that hang off from that. And I'll talk about what those things are in a little bit, because we will base what sort of hangs off from that curriculum on some of the following information, which again, I'm not going to go into a whole lot because we're going to talk about it at the OVUHS board, and if you want more clarity, I certainly can. Just sort of running through Act 173, we do have a local common assessment system. However, once we have unpacked all those standards, we will update our local common assessment system to be able to match the needs there. We also have, go to next slide, or shall I can do it here. So coordinated curriculum, we just talked about that. Maybe I can't do it from here. Oh yeah, it's gotta be from you. And our needs-based professional development. So needs-based professional development, a lot of that will be thinking about our assessments. We'll be thinking about, once the curriculum is built, what needs for professional development arise from that. And so last year, last couple of years, we worked on strand work. And this year, while it's still under construction as we build it, we've been building in some choice for teachers, as well as a little bit of math professional development, a little bit of ELA professional development, and we've done some options-based training within the schools. We have done some understanding of threat assessment training and threat assessment training for those who are working in that, that is their job. So we are definitely sort of trying to find all of the needs and providing some choice as well. So part of, yes?
Quick question, what was the group you said you were using to dive into the curriculum work there with the teachers and facilitating some of your meetings there?
Sure.
It was like a center for something or other?
Center for Educational Learning.
Cool. Okay.
We have used it from Washington.
University of Washington.
University of Washington, and this is our third year working with them. Yeah, our third year working with them.
Yeah, thanks.
Sure. So the last, or the fourth lever of Act 173 is a robust EST team. So a team that is able to identify needs of our learners and create plans for targeted intervention. So when I was speaking about the curriculum work, one of the things that will sort of hang on that curriculum and match up with all of the standards, we have, if you look at the purple box here, this is the RNESU system of layered supports, which you hear MTSS. The state they still call it multi-tier systems of support, and they've shifted to layers, so it doesn't match up. Surprise, surprise. However, one of the things when you're thinking about a strong MTSS system is having strong universal instruction that supports all learners. And when you think about Act 173, that is the purpose of Act 173, is to provide access to all learners. And they have gone ahead and changed some of the funding streams for special ed to give us some more flexible options with our staffing. And the other part, in order to have a robust multi-tier systems of support, is to have the first layer of supports or intervention in the classroom. And that is a big focus this year. And we will be building lots of tools and assessment pieces to be able to provide that for teachers. So a lot of that will sort of hang on the curriculum. That will not likely be this year, that will likely be in years to come, but just understanding what is that first layer of intervention that happens in the classroom is sort of a big piece for this year. So just a quick snapshot, because again, we're going to discuss some more at the OVUHS board, but I'm happy to answer any questions. These are the RNESU VCAP spring scores from last year. The new vendor is Cognia. They replaced SBAC, so if you heard your children talk about SBACs, it's now called Cognia, same test. It tests our proficiency in the Common Core state standards. And as you can see, the green is ELA, blue is math, orange is science. Science is only administered in grade 5, grade 8, and grade 11. And our SBACs. Our Cognia testing is only from grade 3 to grade 9 for ELA and math. So if you want to go to the next slide, our scores, when you compare them from 2022 to 2023, light blue being last year, dark blue being, the year before, last year, 2023 being the dark, you'll see that we did make some gains. I was speaking with, we certainly have some work to do here, and a lot of this data will inform our curriculum and all of the units and the tools that sort of live underneath that curriculum. One thing I want to point out is that in the first 2 blocks for ELA and math, it indicates students scoring a 3 or a 4, that is proficient or exceeding proficiency. And then if you look over to the right, we have learners who are scoring in a 2, 3, or 4. That is either approaching, meeting, or exceeding. And I want to point out that when you think about the approaching piece, there are many, many students, and I'm really putting my teacher hat back on now, who even in sort of 5th and 6th grade are needing just a little bit of intervention or a little bit of extra practice, and they would score in that approaching range. Those students are highly successful when they get to high school and beyond. So we really shouldn't discount that approaching. Of course, if you are at the very lower end, that's of great concern, but know that a student who is in that high approaching range, it's a pretty large group of students, as you can see, that can often be there. And the test is 1 day, it's 1 snapshot, and that's just something to think about. This is a trend line that I pulled a whole bunch of data together and a lot of different types of assessments. And I wanted to sort of point out that you'll notice that I guess the best way to describe it in a quick sort of way is that our trends do not tend to grow with our learners until they get to 3rd grade. And one of the things that we can think about, if you want to the next slide, is I'll go back to that one if you want to go on to the next one, Kristen, and then I'll come back to the snapshot. One of the things that we're researching right now is thinking about some professional development for our K-6 teachers that would include the science of learning, which is, it's not a program, it's really developing a set of tools to, in order to really be able to highlight that phonics piece of reading and have a deep understanding, because we're seeing that many of our learners in our primary grades are coming in, especially when we think about the pandemic years, and some of those students are now just in 2nd grade. We're finding that our younger students are often coming in for a lot of reasons, having dysregulated days, and therefore you're unable to access your learning. So when you look on the left, we have Super Kids. That is our program currently. Not saying it's a bad program, but if you're unable to access and you have these holes here, then you can imagine that it takes a while to sort of catch up. So we're doing a good job of intervening, as you can tell, because our students are hitting 3rd grade and they're sort of taking off then. But imagine if we could catch them a little earlier with a little more tools in primary grade. So all of that connected together. We are looking at Kristen's strategic planning is on the left, and all the strategic planning will go ahead and inform all of our next work for curriculum.
Great, thank you.
Sorry, that was a mouthful.
That's okay.
Thank you.
That's all right. Any questions for Debbie?
Great.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Debbie. Okay, so we have come to the end of our meeting tonight. We do not need executive session. So our next board meeting is set for Tuesday, November 21st, 5 o'clock here at the Otter Valley Library or on Zoom. And with that, I would take a motion to adjourn at 6 o'clock.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
All right, Jess, and is there a second? Susanna, all right, good night.